Yes, 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 yes. Man, it's another Tuesday evening. What's going on, fellas? We're here in the man cave. That's right, the man cave. And for those of you who are outside the man cave, welcome to Confidence Factor Talks. Listen, this is going to be a phenomenal conversation. We are still in the fourth quarter, almost into 2022, going into 2023. And of course, this is a time for sales, right? This is where you see all the sales, the Black Friday sales, the holiday sales. So we thought it fitting that we want to be able to share how do you maximize your sales by being a sales rebel, right? So not just a salesperson, but being a sales rebel. So here in this community, it's all about being disruptive. It's about standing out. It's about doing things that expresses your unique fingerprint. And so we want to certainly have this conversation about maximizing your sales by being a sales rebel. What are some of the tips and strategies that you can implement, not just for the holiday season, but into 2023 and beyond? So I'm excited to be here for another Confidence Factor Talks. I have with me the great Lamar Gwen, the mighty Festa. What's going on, champion?
What's going on? What's going on? It is a great day, as Bobby B would say, and I'm just happy to be here. I'm just happy to be here, bro.
Listen, I'm happy to be here with you because I'm not gonna spill the beans or anything, but you've been having a phenomenal week. And it's a lot of things due to what we've been doing in the community. I'm gonna plug the Confidence Factor community for that one, right?
Man, when I tell you, going into the mastermind,
yes,
I did not know it would be this good. Like, to be able to get so heart level in the mastermind with the fellas, and to see other men get so heart level, and That's then right. to see all of the manifestation, all of just us leveling up together. It's just amazing. Yeah. So I have some good news, but I'm not gonna spill the beans yet. I think I'm gonna post a picture.
Yeah, you gotta post a picture. You can't let the lion out the bag. You can't let the lion out the bag. You have to post the picture. But listen, we're excited here. If you're wondering why we're so excited, it's because listen, we've created a safe space for men to have heart level conversations that lead to transformation. So many guys today, whether they're entrepreneurs, they're professionals, they're leaders, they're having a challenge. They're dealing with something called the lid. You may be asking, Darian, what's the lid? What are you talking about, the lid? Well, here's what it is. A lot of guys are feeling lonely. They're feeling isolated. They're feeling like they don't matter. For one reason or the other, as they're going through the journey of life, whether they're at the top of the game in their entrepreneurship, whether they're at the top of the corporate ladder, right, or starting their business, oftentimes the journey can feel lonely. Sometimes the conversations that you have going on inside of your head, you feel like you're the only one dealing with the things you're dealing with. And so what do you need? You need to tap into a community. You need to be having a space where you can express your ideas, your thoughts, your insights, your gift of value. And so we've created a space called Confidence Factor, this community called Confidence Factor, for entrepreneur-minded men to have heart-level conversations that lead to transformation. As Lamont was just mentioning, we have things like the masterminds where we come together privately and discuss a lot of things that we're dealing with to transform, right? And to be able to not just grow professionally, but grow personally as well. And that's what it's about, Lamont, man. I'm really excited about what we have going on. I'm truly excited for you, man. I'm celebrating with you, brother, man. The great things that's happening this week and the continuous growth that we're going to have with this community. So, our mission here with Confidence Factor is this, and we want you guys to support what we're doing here, because as men, need to have a space where they can share what's there for them, right? As men share their voices, the world gets better. As men express themselves and share what's on their heart, products and services get created. As men share their voices, communities get impacted, families get transformed, and they unleash their riches. And so we're on a mission to impact the lives of over 5 million men, to come together in a collaborative space, to work on leverage, to remove the ideas of scarcity and work through abundance, to be able to elevate themselves both personally and professionally. We're bringing, superstars like the guest that we have right now, who's coming to talk about sales into this community. And of course, for those of you outside the community to learn from, to hear from, to get some amazing nuggets so you can grow, right? Life is about two things. Number one is about growth and it's about contribution, right? And we in this community is about growth and we're contributing to the men in this community. So we want you guys to support us in our mission and what we're doing. And of course, we use a principle called a SMART principle. And you may be asking, Darren, what is SMART principle? Well, I'm going to tell you. Don't pull me. I'm going to tell you. All right, here's how it goes. So it's like this. At the baseline of everything that you have in your life, your business, any sort of growth, it comes with mastery, right? You have to have self-mastery. Your self-image, your self-esteem is the foundation. The way you see yourself is going to be the driving factor of how high you achieve success in life, whether it be in your relationships, whether it be in your business, whether it be in whatever that you're pursuing. Your self-mastery, that self-image, that self-esteem is going to be critical. So having that foundation is a key factor and a base principle here in Confidence Factor. The next thing, of course, is accountability. The reality is that oftentimes we have dreams, we have goals, we have things we want to accomplish. And oftentimes we find that we're not able to finish. We're not able to execute at a high level. Why? Because it's so easy to give up on our goals and dreams. It's so easy to allow the comfort zone to seep in. It's so easy for that negative conversation, that what if, to stop you from moving forward. But when you have somebody there to lock arms with you, when you have somebody that you've committed to, when you have somebody that you said, I'm going to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym with you in the morning, there's somebody else there to help you to push forward, to have a bigger conversation than the inner limitation that you have, right? And so that allows for a space of moving forward towards your goal. So accountability is critical. And last but not least, like I said, we bring champions into this community to serve, right? To share their gift of value with our community. And having those resources, those tools, whether it be books, whether it be conferences, whether it be masterminds, having those resources and tools available to the guys to transform. So that's what we're about, man. I'm just going on and on, but I'm excited to be here tonight, as always, because again, it's an opportunity to be a contribution to the world and contribution to the men in this community. So Lamont, you got anything, man? You got anything going on, man? You got anything you want to share that's on your heart, my brother?
Man, I just to reiterate, man, for those of you who aren't in our mastermind, in the coming weeks, we're going to have some information about that. You're going to see firsthand the difference that this mastermind, Unleash Your Riches, has had in the lives of the men in the group. And we're going to ask you to join, because we're about to take it to the next level. So yeah. I feel blessed to be in a space where I am accepted, where I am loved, where I'm appreciated, where I'm celebrated, where I get to celebrate others, and where we can just watch and experience just some phenomenal changes in other men's life, and then celebrate them. So I'm just happy to be here, brother.
Yeah. So of course we know that, a number of you guys are going to be watching live, and a number of you guys are going to be watching on the replay. So if you're watching live, be sure to put your comments below. Let us know where you're coming in from. Of course, we always say here in Confidence Factor, heart level. So you put heart level in the comment section and just put hashtag live or hashtag replay if you're watching this on replay. And let us know if you have any questions, right? If you have any questions about our community, if you have any questions for our guests that we can always forward those questions to, let us know if you have any questions. It looks like I'm having a little lag, Lamont. Am I lagging a little bit?
You're good.
I'm good. Okay. So, my apologies. I'm lagging a little bit. Want to shout out my man James Hewitt is in the building. Confidence Factor, brother. What's going on, James? I see. Also, I believe that's Wayne Moody from Houston. I believe says heart level greetings from Houston. I can't see the name, but I'm assuming that's Wayne, or maybe that's Adrian. We have a global community here, so we have guys all over the world. So they could be tuning in from wherever, right? So I'm glad to have you fellas, man. And I just want to celebrate you guys. You heard Lamont talk about celebration. I want to celebrate you guys for the work that y'all been doing in your life, in your business, in your families to transform. It's just been amazing to see the growth that you guys been having. And I just continue to celebrate you. Your success is our success. When you guys have success, we have success. It's different conversation outside the community. Other people say, no, your success means a lack of my success. So I have to be envious of you. I gotta be jealous of you. I gotta not support you. But in this community, that's not what we do here. We celebrate, we elevate, and what's the other word I can say? Celebrate, elevate. What's the other rhyme, Lamont? Well, give me another one. Celebrate, elevate, and appreciate.
Appreciate. There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, we got this. We got this covered. And listen. And we certainly appreciate the guests that we have coming on. Like I said, as we're coming to the end of the year, everybody's thinking about, hey, how can I increase those sales? How can I go hard? How can I take my business to the next level? And sales is the critical focus and point right now. That is a key. So the question is, how can you not just maximize your sales, but how can you do it like a rebel, man? How can you be disruptive? How can you really take your sales to a whole nother level? And so, Lamont, I'm excited that you're going to be, introducing our guest, my man. This guy right here. Woo!
Yeah. So first of all, I just want to give a heart level to Javon, a heart level to Rudy. Hope you feel better, brother. Heart level to Bobby. We miss you, brother. And I just want to say that. But the guest tonight, I met him back in 2017 at a LinkedIn event. And this brother was on fire. When I tell you he was on fire, he's the kind of guy when he walks in the room, he's going to light it up. And he's going to light the match. And it's going to boom, He's just got that energy about him. But more importantly, he's been through some things. And he hasn't allowed that to stop him. And his ability to take sales and turn it on its head and create something that is incredible is amazing. So I have a pleasure of bringing to the stage my brother from another mother, Dale Dupree, the sales rebel. Welcome to the show.
Man. Yeah, give me a round of applause, man.
What's up, guys?
Yeah. I got. You know what?
You got me one.
I got.
Oh, let's hear it. That's what I'm talking about. That's a very elegant.
There we go. Welcome to the show. So glad you can be here.
I'm excited to be here, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Oh man, beautiful, Dale. Thanks for spending the time with us, man. And we appreciate you. We honor you, and like I says, we're here to elevate you and have you share your fingerprint with the community. Now, this is my first time meeting you, Dale. I know Lamont has had the blessing opportunity to connect with you and learn who you are. But first thing we want to do in this community to get people to know who you are. We've heard you've gone through some things, and you've came through some things. You've battled through some things. So we want to know what are some of those things and who Dale Dupree is. Talk to us, my brother.
The best way to kind of just give people an understanding of who I am and where I come from is to start at the beginning of the story in 1984, which really begins with my father, Curtis Dupree. And in 84, he broke away from the traditional, way to live your life, which is go get a job, work for the man, be a part of the status quo, do whatever they say, sacrifice your morals and principles, and you'll be fine. You'll be great. You'll be successful. Well, in 84, my dad said, screw this. He said, I see a better way to do this for people. I see a better way to serve. I see a better way to be principled, to live a happy life, and to change the trajectory of where I'm headed right now, which is not necessarily in a good space. And so he broke away from the big box store that he worked at, and he started his own copier firm. Now, I was born a year later, and they like to say that toner was running through my veins from day one because of the whole concept of my father deciding to start his own copier business. Here's the biggest reason why people say that. In the copier industry, believe it or not, predominantly, it's family owned and operated. Now, when people say copy machines, like for the most part, people think like, yo, that's a tough place to sell and to own a business. Like, why would you even do that? And let alone like bring your family and create a consequence for them. Like, sorry, you're going to have to work for my company now. Right. Like, so ultimately the thing that I learned though, right, the world looks at it one way, a rebel looks at it another. The thing that I learned was that what my father really noticed is that sales is something that's so much bigger than what people make it to be. And selling a copy machine can actually change someone's life. And by taking that stance and doing the things that he did, ultimately he paved the path for me to be able to walk down. Now, my story is intense. There's a lot to it. Ultimately, it's no different than anybody out there watching right now. Everybody has, I believe, a unique and very valuable story that whether they walk in principle for the entirety of it or they've fallen into sin and temptation and problems like I have, it don't matter. It's still unique. It's still valuable. And we all need to hear it ultimately. Yeah, I would give a little bit of just kind of an overview of it by saying I struggled from depression, from a very young age, and it's something that I've had to battle through my entire life. Now, I didn't live in a lower class neighborhood. I lived in College Park. Anybody that knows Orlando knows where College Park is. It's like the apple of most people's eye. Well, my dad found this place before even anybody knew what it was, and he bought a property and a house on a hill, basically, for I want to say somewhere in the $70,000 range, right back in 1984 timeframe as well too. Houses sell there for over $1 million now, right? Like, what a great idea, Dad. Way to go, Dad. You bought right in the perfect neighborhood. So what happened around me was I watched us go from kind of like this small town and very intimate place to blowing up. And suddenly, everybody around you is from another state. There's no one from Orlando. I'm third generation. Excuse me. Third generation. I'm a third generation Orlandoan, which is a crazy thought, right? So again, like, I didn't have a bad upbringing, but the thing is that unfortunately I was put in difficult situations, and circumstantially through those difficult situations, I made choices, and we've all got the chance to do those things, right? Mine weren't the greatest. And at the end of the day, a lot of it, stemmed from other people's choices as well too, which I don't have control over. So I could sit back and I could say, when it comes to the abuse that I suffered from and some of the things that I went through in my younger years, I could say, this is somebody else's fault. I blame them, and I'm going to live a life of spite. But instead, like, I forgive those people. And ultimately, this is where I recognize and realize that my depression even stems from in the first place, and why it's so important that I conquer past issues and that I don't hide them and I don't walk away from them and I don't pretend like they never happened. When I was 17 years old, I had the opportunity to basically go and take a scholarship to a handful of colleges. I had sports scholarships, full rides. I had academic scholarships. I had some of the highest SAT scores in my class, in my region, in the state. I was a smart kid. My heart was in a different place, though. Ultimately, I wanted to play music. I was an entertainer. I was somebody that was creative. I had a big imagination. And I played in a band that I started when I was about 15 or 16 years old, just like as a project, if you will, that turned into something that got a little bit more serious. We got good at what we did. And essentially, we created a company, a music act, right? Started playing local shows, had followers, started thinking, hey, we could tour all over the United States if we wanted to. And so we set up our own tour with our own bands that were on labels. We weren't, right? And we set up 50 days around the United States, 17. So I'm just about to turn 18, right? I'm graduating from high school, supposed to go to college. Instead, I hit the road with a band. Now, here's the biggest reason why my mom was probably a little freaked out by this. Like, ultimately, any mom or dad that's out there listening right now, and they're like, I'd probably be freaked out in general. My mom was a little freaked out about this because a couple years earlier, in that depression, in that low state, I actually tried to commit suicide. And it was a pretty gory scene. At the end of the day, I lived, and ultimately I was just so naive about what I was doing that I was just trying to die. That was the goal, and I was going to do whatever it took. And I didn't know what I was doing. Thankfully, divine intervention. My mom wasn't supposed to come home, and she did from work, and that stopped the whole process. And 2 years later, with this kind of sign of oh my gosh, everything's going to work out. Dale's going to go to college, and this is great. I walk in the kitchen and go, hey, so I'm not going to college, and I'm going to hit the road with a band, my band, and we're going to tour. And those are intimate and very specific details, right, in my story. But ultimately, it's good for people to hear that and to think for yourselves what that story would look like for you, or how that story applies to your own walk as well, too. I find that we learn the most through other people's journeys and living vicariously through their stories and being able to understand what life is outside of what we've experienced. And ultimately, at the same time, too, there's somebody out there that this story resonates with you. And I'm here to tell you that you're not alone. I thought I was alone for a long time. From 17 to 21, 22 years old, I toured in that band. We ended up on Warner Brothers Records. We crushed it. We had a great time. We built our own success, right? Not on the backs of anybody else. We were nobody. We didn't have family in the music industry. We didn't have connections in the music industry. We just blazed a path. And like, when I say we blazed it, we freaking blazed it. We burnt everything down around us, which ultimately wasn't necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. But what I learned in the process of that is I learned community. I learned the identity of relationships. I learned what it really meant to sell, which was to give people an experience. Nobody likes to be pitched, right? Everybody, but people would prefer like entertainment. People would prefer to feel something instead of being sold something, right? And so these are my foundations started here, where I recognize it's possible to build a community from nothing, as a matter of fact. And if I can do it in the music industry, I can in a random city in Fargo, North Dakota, right? I can do that in Orlando, Florida, selling copy machines. At the end of the day, what happened with the music scene was that stuff, right? There was people in the band that fell victim to heavy drugs, heroin, and it got nasty. And ultimately, it was God's calling on my life in that moment to say, bro, this is not where I want you to be anymore. You did a great job. It's time to get out. So I worked for my dad. That toner that ran through my veins was like the prodigal son returning. They always knew I'd come back. You know what I'm saying, right? So I show up to my dad's office, and for 2 years, I just sucked at sales, ultimately, right? I had a lot of fun in those first 2 years because I failed a lot and I got to try a lot of things. And ultimately, I'm a risk taker. So I liked what was happening. But at the same time, at about that 2-year mark, I started to recognize I got to make some changes. I got to change. I got to think differently about what's happening in my life. I got to start reeling it in. And I started to become more aware, more present with myself, more intentional, and stop thinking of like, oh, I need to go get a career and make money now. And because I'm not in music anymore and I got to get a regular job. And I got rid of all those thoughts. They're damning thoughts ultimately. And I started to believe in myself and started to tell myself, dude, just like you were passionate about music, you can be passionate about this industry. And where the passion really fell in was people. I found people. And ultimately, I connected with people. I walk into an office and talk to the front desk for 15 minutes, knowing that it was going nowhere, and they had zero power over making a decision on whether or not they could buy a copier from me. But ultimately, I knew that I had a chance to be able to give that person a little bit of life, to be able to give them an experience, to be able to build a reputation through those individuals that I got to encounter. And same thing goes for the buyers that I met with too. And ultimately, CIOs of $250 million corporations run locally in Central Florida to billion-dollar conglomerates that are in the aerospace and defense industries. I did it all. At the end of the day, I walked into garages and sold copy machines to people that were like starting their business from scratch. I sold thousands of machines to people, all over the state of Florida, and that had locations throughout the United States, even at the same time, right? Like I did it all. And I had zero idea that I would ever have that kind of experience when I woke up one morning and said, man, I got to go get a real job. Right. But instead of living in that attitude, I thought about the progress that I could be making in the long game that I could take a perspective on when it came to my career and what I was doing in the business world. And ultimately, I founded the concept of the sales rebellion while I sold. And at a certain point in time, I left the organization that I was with. I dabbled around with some side projects, opened a food truck, had some fun, did some crazy things. But it eventually ended up starting the Sales Rebellion. And the Sales Rebellion is unique in that we're a sales training organization that believes that we're a movement. And that movement is people over products, community over commission checks. It's about giving experiences over performing pitches. It's about fellowship rather than negotiations. And ultimately, it's about leaving legacies. It's about doing things in an intentional way that affects and impacts people. That the product that you're selling is so much more than just a piece of hardware, a piece of software, or a service. It's your own two hands. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's your blood, sweat, and tears. And it's the person whose problem you're fixing. It's the person who you are serving that makes you successful. And because of that concept, I realize and recognize very quickly that community is important. People are the most important thing that we have on this earth, with outside of ourselves and God. And to me, like when I looked at that concept, I thought, I just figured out the meaning of life. Right. And like I can live happy and I can do something like sell, which most people just do to pay the bills. And I can have, such a greater intention around my career and what I was doing. So that's a literal the landscape of Dale Dupree, who I am, my story, some of the things that are packed inside of it. And hopefully that gives the listeners and the audience a better idea of who Mr. Dupree actually is.
Man, Dale, listen. I the more you talk, man, the more I'm excited that you're here today. And I'll tell you, there's a couple of things. You've already dropped some rebel nuggets already that I just wanted to point out, because this one is so big, and it's so contrary to what you will hear most people say relative to sales. But this one is so good. It says, selling can change someone's life. Like really having that intention, having that intentionality that what you are selling is not just a product, but I want you to really dig into that, because I feel like that's such a powerful tenet, such a powerful place to come from, which is why the way in which you operate in sales works so effectively. So talk to us more about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes it can be measured as small as like giving people time back, which ultimately is one of the greatest gifts that we can give to to each other. So like if I can get an hour back into my day, as an example, because of a process that was taken care of through a product that I purchased through a salesperson, that means I can spend another hour with my son. And that means for the next 18 years of his life until he's out of my house, right? Hopefully it's by 18. Good Lord, let it be 18, right? Like, but by 18, like that means I get an extra hour every day for 365 days a year for 18 years. Quantify that for a second. That's life-changing, right? But we don't think deeply enough about these things. Instead, we take the surface level route because it's easier, right? It's status quo. It's part of the mediocrity of what the world is. But you could get deep too, and you could say that at my father's funeral, the legend passed in 2016. He died of cancer. I stood up on stage to give the eulogy, and I looked out at a sea of people, bro. I had never seen so many people in one room. And I thought, outside of like playing music, right? Like I had flashbacks like that. It was like being on stage again. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm at a funeral, right? For my father. And also like, he was just a copier salesperson. And at the same time, who the heck are half the people in this room? I didn't even recognize them for 6 hours, guys, after that that moment in those conversations, briefly from stage and honoring my dad. It was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ceremony. For 6 hours, people came up to me and they told me stories about my father. People that would say, hey, Dale, your dad, he was my copier salesman, but he was so much more than that to me. And they would deeply express gratitude for a man that literally sold him a copier. There's a comment on my Facebook right now about a post I made, and somebody's in it and they asked a question and then they reflect on my father. And they said, when you talk about this attitude, they said, I'm reminiscent of your dad. They said, I remember one time we had equipment at our office and I was nobody. I was an intern. And your dad had come down and had seen that I was there and said, hey, let me grab lunch with you. You got time to grab lunch? And meanwhile, this person that's expressing the story is like, why does that even, like, why would your dad want to get lunch with me? You get so many things. I can't buy anything. I can't make any decisions here. And he said, and then your dad just like literally caught up with me and just asked me how he could help me and asked me about things in my life. And he prayed for me. And ultimately at the end of, the thought process of the reminiscent memory, I went, bro, I've seen my dad do that more times than I can count. And at the same time too, to hear stories about it when we weren't looking, right? Because my father was a servant leader to the max, guys. He was the guy that he didn't care if anybody said, great job. Or, dude, did you see what Curtis just did? My dad wanted to intentionally serve people behind closed doors. He did not want recognition. He wanted to serve without expectation. He didn't expect some type of outcome for himself. He wanted to make your life better. And he did it. And he did it. And we saw the evidence of that. And people that tell me things like, I get haters in my comments all the time. You don't change lives. You sell HBO subscriptions. That's my favorite comment I ever got because I read that. I laughed pretty hard. I was like, that's pretty good right there. And I said, my guy, yeah, if you dumb it down to that, sure. Continue to live your mediocre life, bro. Continue to look at things at a surface level like this. Continue to constantly ignore the fact that you can purposefully and intentionally change people's lives through those stupid HBO subscriptions. Because when you're selling it to that one person and you can see a little bit of darkness in their eyes and a little bit of sadness in their tone, and you stop and you say, hey, man, thanks for this purchase today. You're bettering my life. You're helping my family. You're making me money at the end of all this. And hopefully I'm solving some problems for you. But at the same time, would you mind if I just took like my sales hat off and just prayed for you? I feel like maybe there's something going on. Right. Those are the moments. And we run from that kind of stuff because ultimately that's awkward. And it's not what life is defined as. Right. You don't hear a president or a dictator or an ambassador or somebody in power standing up saying, this is how we should treat people. Right. You don't see that. You don't see it in their actions. You don't hear it in their words. And so we as a community, we as a society, we as a world continue to be ruled under the thumb of mediocrity. And I use that word a lot, right? You're going to hear me say status quo a lot too, right? Because I want to drive it home because it sucks. And ultimately we have been called for so much more. My guy Lamont is such a great example of this. I met this guy and I had no idea what his story was. And man, I'm like, when I think back to it, when I think about where he is today, guys, like anybody that knows Lamont and has known him for the last 4, 5, 6 years understands what I'm talking about, right? He came from nothing. He came from being beat down. He came from being literally broken by society. And I stood in front of this guy when he was in his rebuild, right? And I even remember telling him, like, bro, you got to change some things. You got to show up on time. You got to do this different. You got to do it right. We had some pretty deep conversations. And ultimately, I watched this guy turn into the man that y'all see today because he decided, I'm not going to live in mediocrity. I'm not going to be controlled by the status quo and the narrative of people in the world. I'm going to live for something so much greater that I've truly been called for. Whether you believe in God or not, I want to just say this, ladies and gentlemen. Humans are complex. This world is complex. There is something intelligent about the design of who we are. There is no chance. There is no happenstance. There is no circumstance. There is only intentional action. And whether it's some kind of universe or it's Jesus, right? For you, ultimately, at the end of the day, you got to recognize that we are not just here for no reason. And that if you tap into that, I promise you, the things you'll find are immaculate.
Man, wow. And that's, you know, I can get the essence when you meet with someone, and I can tell that your father gifted you with so much of that same value set, right? That blueprint, that fingerprint, the desire to serve beyond recognition. And that adding value concept, it's oftentimes, you know, we give lip service to it, but oftentimes we don't necessarily represent it in our actions. So Dale, I want to just thank you so much for really representing that in the world today to make a difference in the lives of the people that you're meant to serve. And, you know, I love that you talked about this intentionality. I go back to that again. That is the way we need to look at, first of all, what we're selling, right? And I'm going to just assume that part of the rebel tenet or the pillar is to, as Wayne Dyer would say, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. If they change the way we look at what we sell and the impact that it has on the people that we are selling it to or serving it to, makes a world of a difference. And I love that. So I wanted to have you, you know, kind of share with us, what is a rebel? As you describe it, what is a rebel, and what are the principles that governs a rebel salesperson?
A great question, bro. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that too, right? So the rebellion is founded on roots. And so every person that comes into the rebellion, they learn their rebel roots, as we like to say. Those roots have 4 pillars. And in those pillars are things like service, right? So servant leadership, like we just discussed, and identifying that in yourself and what it is that you ultimately sell. Because remember, selling is serving others. Selling is fixing problems. Nobody buys just to buy something. Nobody buys just because they have to have it. They buy it because it creates an outcome for them organically once it's fit into their ecosystem. And so nobody out there that's in sales is technically really in sales. They're in service. And at the end of the day, I think that's the biggest disconnect, that the majority of sellers, they care more about making money, getting rich, buying a fancy car, and just basically like getting you to buy something through that process so they can get there, right? Ultimately, they push product, they push solutions, right? And they don't necessarily sell based on what they fix, right? They don't sell based on the problem you're having. And so those roots are very important, because we also, in those foundations too, we have your mission, right? Like what drives you, what's your purpose, right? And salespeople don't typically have that. They say, oh, you mean my company's mission statement? Like, no, I mean yours, bro. I mean, like, what do you want to do with your life? And ultimately, most people, I've talked to 40, 50-year-old men and women that have gone through our program that are like, I've never done anything like this. And to me, like, that's a shame. Like we have failed the sales community up to this point by not allowing them to go through an exercise of mission and vision and values as a salesperson working for an organization, because you're in charge of your destiny in sales. You do not work at an hourly rate. You work off of a literally off of the substantial outcomes that you create for other people. And so you have to take ownership of it. We also, in those roots, we talk about the foundations of things like prospecting or outreach, or essentially like, what is our brand? What is our reputation? What are we building? Right. And what that stems into is 3 or 4 different concepts ultimately, but really it's a sales system of 6 different compartments. So from the roots all the way to the sales process, kind of post-sale concepts, right? But in there, well, the things that make us different and that you can identify a rebel from a mile away is that, like, for outreach, as an example, for prospecting, we don't believe in picking up a phone and saying, hey, can I have 27 seconds of your time to tell you why I called? You know, we believe in picking up the phone and saying, yo, Lamont, good news. This is not a call about your car's extended warranty, and I'm not selling timeshares. And letting him respond, giving him the floor, creating a familiar and experiential moment. Him on the other line going, okay, so what do you have? I'm glad you asked. Right? Instead of forcing ourselves onto people basically throughout the day through cold calling concepts. There's nothing wrong with cold calling, right? But ultimately we believe in experiences. So at the same time, most of the calls that a rebel will make is they'll say, hey, what's up? I'm the guy that sent you that letter in the mail. I'm the guy that sent you that trophy in the mail. I'm the guy that sent you that 6-foot cardboard cutout of myself. I'm the guy that sent you that carrier pigeon with the note. Did you get it? Right? Like, that's what we do as rebels. One of our most like infamous outreach tactics is just with a piece of paper. I created this concept for people that wanted to DIY their marketing efforts when they were doing cold prospecting without having to spend a bunch of money, and still be able to give people very unique experiences. And it was literally just a crumpled up piece of paper. That's all it was. Its origin started as that. It's just a literal crumpled up piece of paper, right? And that crumpled up piece of paper, right? People take it, they uncrumple it, and it says, you're probably wondering why this is all wrinkled and crumpled up. 90% of the sales and marketing you get is trash. So I pre-crumpled this to make it easier for you to throw away because I value your time. And a CIO or a CEO or a CTO, right? Somebody high up in that food chain, right? They're going to read that thing and be like, well, that's ridiculous, right? Well, that concept turned into things like this coffee stain letter right here. So this is an envelope with a little coaster on it. We call this the coffee stain letter. And this thing's a lot of fun because when you pull the letter out of the actual envelope and you unfold it, there's just coffee all over this bad boy. And it's got great copy where it says, hey, listen, you're going to throw me away? I was thinking like maybe you reuse me, set me on your desk, fold me up like a coffee coaster, and you'll remember me forever, right? And I don't want to be a forgettable salesperson. I want to give people a feeling. I don't want to sell a product, right? So ultimately, this is what rebels tap into. This is one of my favorite rebels in the world. His name is Ned Eric. He doesn't work for this company anymore, but this is a business card he used to hand out. Look at the size of this thing. Right. He handed this business card to you, and he was a superhero here on the front with a QR code right here that says scan me. And there's no information about his company other than the name of it and this superhero. And on the back of it, it says equipping your office superheroes. Right. So there's a whole theme to this. Right. But so I hand this to you and say, hey, Lamont, some guy came in named Ned, and he said you needed this, and he dropped this off for you. Lamont's going to be like, what the heck is that? Scan it, go to the website, learn more about the company, watch a video, interact with something, and go, wow, that's a cold call? That was crazy. And then when Ned calls a couple days later, what's up, Lamont? Did you get my card? Right. And he already knows. He saw you scanned it, you know. But ultimately, again, it's that curiosity that we drive as rebels. It's radical education that we provide for people about what we fix and ultimately why we're different. Because it's a proving ground, right? Like I don't believe in like the battle and the war and the football analogies of sales, but I do believe that sales is a proving ground. It's a place to prove to yourself that you're better than what the inside of you, my depression, told me. It told me I sucked. It told me I'd never be anything. It told me that I was worthless and I should just leave this earth, right? And so it was sales for me was a proving ground to myself. And then ultimately it's a proving ground for the reputation that you believe you can build for other people. And through that process of reputation, the only way that it's built is by them saying to you, I like you, and I mean it. So ultimately, that's a rebel in a nutshell, right? There's a lot of different compartments of our system that we go through. We teach people mindset. We take them to a whole new level at the end of the day. But those are some things that, you know, the listeners can hear where maybe you've gotten a crumpled letter and you're like, holy cow, it came from you guys. That's cool. So, and we help people all over the world ultimately. So like I said earlier, we're a movement. We're not just a bunch of tactics. We're a concept and a movement.
Wow. I love this. I love this. So much great nuggets. And listen, if you guys are listening on to my sound of voice, Dale has provided such a great foundation and so much, you know, tactical and strategic things. If you're not listening, you didn't hear it, you're not listening, right?
Right.
It's so good. But one of the things I wanted to highlight, and I want to thank, of course, Wayne for just kind of chiming in. I want to recognize Wayne. He says, as we operate in the intention of adding value to those we are encountering and doing business with, being individuals of increase, we ourselves are increasing. Thank you so much for that, Wayne. That's beautiful. Always good contributor to these conversations. But I really want to highlight something you said, Dale, and I want to continue a conversation around this because this is unlike any other conversation I've heard. I'm in agreement with the 50-year-olds and the men and women who've been a part of your class. I'm feeling the same way, right? This is amazing. This is outstanding. You said something. You create experiences. Creating experiences. That and then the other thing that you added too is I want you to get a feeling. You didn't say I'm not trying to make a sale. You said I want you to get a feeling. Why is that so important, Dale?
So hold on, Dale. Before you answer that question, because I've heard some of these amazing stories, right? So can you break down like one of the greatest, most outstanding in answering that question and creating a feeling experiences that you created for somebody? Just give us one.
The one, I'll go back to my roots here. One of my first experiential sequences, and how I want people to picture this is that what I decided is that I was going to send 3 different objects to this person, but I only ended up getting to send one, just so you know. Okay, so they were like this intrigued that they were like, just get in here. But so spoiler alert how this ends, right? But what I did is I created this concept of 3 different touch pieces, right? And where it started with something that was different ultimately. And it was a 6-foot cardboard cutout of myself pulling a sword out of a golden copy machine in the middle of the woods. And it said on this giant, it was huge. It was the size of me. It was life size. It said, every day he wakes up believing this is his job. And there was a note for the person that said, hey, I recognize that you're busy and I've had like the hardest time getting a hold of you or to meet with you. And then like triple space down. And it said, but I gotcha. and now I had 2 more items that I was going to send behind that were also essentially like me, like an inflatable version of me, and that were me, like to come to this person's office. And in these early stages of the way that I built these experiences, I was kind of at the center of them. But ultimately, what I started to do was to create outreach where the prospect is the center of attention. And I learned my lesson throughout the process of that being successful, but ultimately realizing that, like, let's just say 3 or 4 weeks or meetings even into the sales cycle, I noticed that I didn't really earn enough at the forefront when it came to trust and credibility to have a good cycle all the way through, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times what we'll do at the forefront is to like anything we can to get someone's attention. And then when we got it, we think like, well, we can do it now. Like, I'm good at closing. I'm good at running a sales cycle. I mean, like, honestly, blow it out your rear end, because people can smell that crap from a mile away. And ultimately your commission breath is all that's talking in that moment, right? It doesn't matter if you think you can sell it. If they don't need it and want it and desire that, what you're selling as a fix in their organization, don't matter in the first place. So the more that I can incorporate that messaging and tell that future story at the front end of my prospecting, which is like, goes back to these letter campaigns. Like, we sell these letter campaigns. There's 4 plus some customized letters. If you pay us enough money, ding, ching, a little plug there for my company. Right. But ultimately what, like, my favorite thing that I ever did was that I sat back and I said, I want to be the Disney for sales. I want when someone goes to Disney, they get in line and it's 2 hours to ride a 30-second roller coaster, and they stand in that line and they go all the way through it. And the whole process of that line is experiential. There are things that greet them. There are knickknacks and stuff all over the place. They like go, oh, look at this Easter egg and check this out. This is from the movie and this is so cool. They give you such a ride, all right, outside of the literal ride, that by the time you've gone through it, it's like you don't even remember that you just went through that 2-hour wait in the first place. So in my head, I thought, well, how can I break stereotypes and crush the way that people look at the traditional salesperson in this process and just have them open up and say, what's up? This is my guy, Dale. Not this is my copier person. Not this is the dude that sells at North American Office Solutions, which was my favorite company that I worked for. Shout out to the homies, right? But instead that they said, this is the copier warrior, Dale, my friend. Right, that's what I wanted people to ultimately say. And so I developed this one that everybody will love. It's called the Unwritten Story. And we do this inside of the Rebellion. We build these for people, right, ultimately. But imagine a book comes in. I wish I had one on me to show you because it'd blow your mind, right? But imagine a book comes in and it's like this logo right here, the confidence factor talks, right? Like, and Lamont gets it and he's like, this looks good. And it's like, and it tells the narration of the title, right? It tells the story. It says, how a one man, show took his business from X to Y and did this and did that. And you're like, what's this? And it's like written by Lamont. And you're like, whoa, whoa, I didn't write this book. And then you're kind of looking around and there's all this personalization. There's an author bio. You're like, how did what is happening? Well, then you scroll to the first page. And you realize as you roll through the page, you're like, this is blank. There's nothing in here. And then you're like, oh, but what's this? There's this little sticky note right here on the front. And you pull that sticky note up and it says, Lamont, these pages are blank because you and I have yet to get together to write this story.
Oh, damn.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
And then here's the best part, guys, is that there's 2 more touches that come in the mail behind it. If you didn't set a meeting with me, I'm about to crush everything emotionally that you thought was like reality. You're going to cry by the time I'm done doing these cold calls, and you're going to open yourself up vulnerably, and you're going to become something that you didn't think you could be through a sales process. Wow. And so as cool as it is, and I sat in a room and did the same thing the first time I came up with this, and first time someone hit me back and was like, yo, this is dope. Right. And really, it's the rebel students that I have to give credit to at the end of the day. It's our community that take the risk and send these types of things and set appointments with billion-dollar companies, people that they never thought that they could meet in the first place. Right. So they're door openers, but ultimately they're sequenced in a way that like they understand the value of time and that you're busy. And just because this is cool doesn't mean you're going to set an appointment with me. I got more. Right. And they're not tricks either. They're intentional. They tell the tale. They narrate what is the future. Right. They highlight problems, pains, things that they fix ultimately as a seller. Right. That serves, and not just somebody that's, putting a shoe in a basket and sending it and saying, now that I got a shoe in the door or a foot in the door, can I get a meeting with you? Like, those are clever things from the past, but ultimately they're gimmicks. Right. Speak to me emotionally, intentionally, like take me to another place. Even if I'm the most boring human you've ever met in your life, there is an EQ deep down inside of me that I've repressed or suppressed to some extent. And the fact that you give people these moments for themselves through your sales existence is why, in my opinion, salespeople are the greatest humans on the face of planet Earth, or have the potential to be.
Wow. You know what I heard you say? Give people heart level moments. I'm writing this down. Give them heart level moments.
That's it.
Giving them heart level. Wow, man. I'm floored, but I'm not even on the floor, but I'm floored, man. This thing is. So listen, this thing is so good. I wanted to say something, but you just blew me out the water with that last one. I forgot what I wanted to say.
I'll take it. So
go ahead, Lamont. I know you had a question or something. Yeah. You're on mute.
He'll figure it out. He'll figure it out.
Yeah.
There you go. Sorry about that. in your experience in doing this, tell me about the relationship building part of this. Because, there's a sales part, right? But a lot of times people are disconnected from the people they sell to. what has been your experience as a sales rebel in relationship building because of the way that you approach sales? Did you get that?
I hope you guys can still see me.
I can see you. Yeah, we can see you.
I think I got something going on here. Am I am I flashing on the screen right now?
No, you're good.
No, you're good.
Oh, weird. There's something weird. There's something weird happening in my internet. The devil's here, guys. Is trying to get me off this call. So relationships. This is the thing about relationships. Relationships, they are not like pizza on Friday nights, like people would think, right? Like every Friday night with your friends and your family. Like a business relationship is just as powerful as a friendship, right? Ultimately, the thought process here is that we've all got them. You got a friend in your life. You talk to them like once a year, maybe once every 2 or 3 years. But that person's your brother, they're your sister. Ultimately, they're family. There's somebody that's looked out for you. There's somebody that breathes life into you. There's somebody that brings good ideas, innovation. They have aptitude that you don't. They have acumen that you don't. They become mentors. They become something more. And that's what a relationship is. It's about empowering other people through going out and putting yourself on the line and like your reputation on the line by learning and experiencing and failing and trying and building up, right, what you're giving back to other people. So, I have a lot of people that are young in our stratosphere, right? And that say, man, when I can't wait till I get to your level. I'm like, guy or girl, you're 22 and you have it right now. Like you're doing it right now. All you need to do is commit to this concept of what it is that you're learning and ultimately your experiences so far, because other people, they haven't had your learning or your experiences at the end of the day. And you need to recognize that's powerful, that's what creates a relationship, right? Your story, your uniqueness, right? It's about authenticity in that same breath, right? It's about being genuine. It's about being empathetic. It's about being mindful, right? And those are things that actually truly build and create relationships with other people, and that ultimately create a dope outcome that everybody can lean into at the end of the day. Because even if you don't buy from me, that's not my intention. My intention, I could care less, guys. There's 1,000 more of your type of business out there that I know needs me ultimately at the end of the day, that some in there will, right? And if I'm not the right fit for you, that's okay. Like, let's build something together though. We don't have to do it through you transacting with me with a check or a credit card. Yeah. We can do that through the power of intentional action and the relationship that we ultimately build.
Yeah. And you know what's smart about that, no pun intended, smart, is that ultimately you're leaving that relationship or that interaction with still adding value to the person's life. And so what tends to happen is that you may not get a sale from that particular person, but they're always thinking about you in the back of their mind, and they're always thinking about how they can add value back to your life in some way, even though you're not doing it with that intention. They're always thinking about how can we, establish a relationship? How can I give back? How can I create some value back to Dale or whoever that salesperson is when you operate in that intention? And that's what makes the world a better place. It's like we are leaving people in an emotional space or filling the emotional bank account where they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel understood and supported. And that's what's so beautiful about this process. So as we've been talking to Dale about maximizing your sales as a sales rebel, you probably thought you would have been hearing some of the traditional, numbers and averages and all that typical sales stuff that you hear. This stuff is, principle, right? And it works. And so the key thing, if you want to be able to accelerate your growth and sales, and not just over the holidays, but also into 2023, here's what Dale is saying us a couple of things. Number one, lead with intention. Number two, of course, create more experiences, right? Create a feeling, transfer an emotion, a feeling, allow people to feel seen, heard, understood, and supported. That's beautiful. Man. So Dale, of course, we are getting close to close, man. I'd love to talk to you all day. We're going to do this more again. But tell us about your organization, and tell us about if guys wants to be able to learn about how they can connect with you, to learn more about your sales strategy, your intentionality, your way of the rebel. How can we get in contact with you?
Yeah, the best place to go to really like understand the organization is thesalesrebellion.com. That's the spot I said to everybody. We just built a brand new website too. It's a lot of fun. It's very interactive. It's this whole theme and brand that I came up with, back in the beginning, early stages of the vision of like, how do we take people to a nostalgic place, bring the 80s back, because I'm a huge 80s nerd, right? And ultimately have fun in the process of what we're building now, because most sales training organizations are like a person's name like it's an attorney, right? And they're the most corporate vanilla folks you've ever met in your life. And that's just, to me, it's just not truly what sales is. Sales is creativity. At the end of the day, sales is entertainment. At the end of the day, it's about that feeling like we talked about earlier. So head to thesalesrebellion.com. But I post content daily on LinkedIn. You can find me at linkedin.com/IN /copier warrior. Can't mess it. Or just Google Dale Dupree, right? But I'm on all the platforms: TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, freaking MySpace, probably. I don't even know anymore. Facebook for sure. But just it's either /Sales Rebellion or just type in Dale Dupree and you can't miss me.
I got you. And on the website, I love that because you talked about, really selling from a place of value, right? Knowing what your value set and inject that into your work. And of course, you talk about fun, you talk about creativity, always about transferring that feeling and giving that experience. So when we go to your website, is there a free download? Is there something that we can get, a resource, to get a little bit more of you before we actually commit to any coaching or anything like that? Is there any sort of giveaway that you have?
There's lots of cool stuff on the website. Ultimately, there's a resources page. There's an impending merch store that's about to launch. There's access to our Rebel Academy. There's our crumpled letter campaign like we talked about. I'm pretty sure our blog hasn't launched yet, but you can listen to our podcast, Selling Local, which is one of our original podcasts. There is a link to join our Rebel Slack community, which is probably my favorite thing in the world. Now, I'm going to say that we've been having some problems with it to some extent. So like if you go there and you're like, oh man, I'm so stoked, and you click it and it don't work, there's a little bot down at the bottom of the screen. Just talk to the bot. Let us know that you're not getting your invite. We'll get you into that community. It's 2,000 Rebels strong right now. It's an organic community. We have never promoted it. We basically just kind of put it in places like on our resource page and people flock to it. And it's one of my favorite places in the world. So yes, there are free resources. There are places to hang out. There are places to get to know us better. And then ultimately there's tons of information about our organization and also our different programs for folks.
Love it. Well, Dale, for sure, based on what you shared today, my brother, we certainly are going to be doing a lot more collaboration between Confidence Factor and the Sales Rebel community and organization. I'm looking forward to having you come back in multiple different capacities in the things that we're doing here for, trainings, and when we have our conferences. I can see us just getting real creative with a lot of the tactics and strategies and the heart level intentions that you deliver your service with. So we appreciate you, my brother. We celebrate you. We honor you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, showing us how to really maximize true sales service, by being and embracing what we call the rebel. Thank you so much. So we're going to go ahead and put you back in the green room and close at the show. But man, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a blessing for us tonight.
And if you can hold on before you leave, we're going to talk to you before you go.
Awesome stuff.
Listen, listen. I know who the confidence factor men out there are. When I know Dale is a confidence factor man, right?
Absolutely.
I do this, and I've been after him to be on this show for the longest time, and it came on right on time, man.
Listen, I'm gonna say this right now, Bobby, Rudy, y'all missed a good one. Listen, I love my brothers, but boy, y'all missed a good one.
Right,
this is a good one.
Right. I'm telling you. So I'm so happy, so grateful that Dale was able to come again. His website, the salesrebellion.com. Go check it out. Get some of those resources that he spoke about.
Yeah, I'm certainly definitely going to be checking it out and joining his community as well. And listen, if you're in business, being able to understand how to be more impactful, more creative, add more meaning to what you deliver in your products and your services, be sure to join Dale's community, man. Absolutely phenomenal guy, phenomenal delivery, and he's changing the world and making an impact for sure to what he's delivering. So definitely somebody to connect. Awesome stuff. So do you have inspiration injection for tonight?
You know, I was trying to find one, and all I can say.
Listen, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, so I'm just gonna pull something out the hat. One of my favorite quotes. One of my favorite quotes, and I think Dale really embodied in his presentation this whole thing that if you want to increase your standard of living, you got to first increase your standard of giving.
There you go.
And it's giving not for an end result. It's giving to make ultimately an impact, to leave people with an emotional bank account filled with feeling understood, feeling heard, feeling seen, feeling supported. And that's our inspiration injection for tonight. Man, I love it.
Go. Me too, bro.
So,
we will see you all get back here next week, same time, same channel. And like we always say in Confidence Factor, in everything you do, always keep it heart level. Heart level.
Keep it
See you next week.
Take care, everyone.